Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with Vroom 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 and another blogger interview. Today, we have one of the leading automotive journalists of our generation from the United States, Tara Weingartner. Hello, Tara.
Hi, it's actually Tara Weingarten. No.
I'm sorry. I pronounced it, and I will probably do that again before we're done. I'm terrible with
Okay.
that. But uh,
There's no
but it is
PR on the end.
it is very great to have you with us. And we were just speaking before we started recording about your history as a journalist, and you had worked for so many years at Newsweek magazine before it passed away, and now you work for Vroom Girls. It's your own company that's a web-based blog, and it continues your career with car reviews and sharing information from a woman's perspective, which is a very unique way, and something that the industry needs. Women telling other women the information that they need about automotive issues. So tell us a bit about your Vroom Girls project and how it works and why you started it.
So when Newsweek perished, which is very sad, I thought about joining an enthusiast publication because that's what's out there for automotive journalists. But what I realized was that the core audience at Newsweek, they were not enthusiasts. They were ordinary people shopping for cars. They read my reviews. Excuse me, I had weekly reviews at Newsweek for 19 years.
Mhm.
And I had this collection of knowledge that went back 19 years at the time. It's now 23 years. But at the time, because Vroom Girls is 4 years old, um, I had this collection of knowledge that had gone through several generations of models. So if a car was introduced, 15 years ago, I had all this time of driving the cars every year, seeing how, what was good, what was bad, what was right, what was wrong, and I didn't feel like writing for enthusiasts who cared about down to the millimeter, how lowered a car was or what kind of brakes were on it. Most people who purchase cars really don't care what the brand of brakes are, uh,
Sure.
or they barely even know what a transmission is, which is fine. It should work. The transmission should work. Is the average person's thought.
Yep.
Um, so I wanted to write for a broader audience, and when I started to think of what that might be, I realized nobody was specifically writing for women, and that most people out there who write about cars are men, and they are enthusiasts. And so when a woman goes on to type in, Toyota Corolla, she's going to get brought to an automotive website that is primarily written by a male. The review would be written by a male enthusiast, and
Exactly. I mean, most car websites in general are focused on men as an audience as well as staffed by men. So your site that, focuses on women, it's refreshing for, the audience, but it's also refreshing, I'm sure, for you guys who are working in the field. What made you decide to put up the website rather than necessarily going to another magazine or maybe do something other than, you have a broader audience, but was maybe website ownership or blogging something that interested you because it's new media, or was it something that you wanted to do for some time?
Well, I am the victim of the death of print journalism.
Hmm.
So I knew that that ship had sailed, or rather that print run has run out. So there was no question in my mind this had to be web-based, and that it would be a full website with lots of journalists, not a blog, not me just individually blogging, but that I would collectively bring on professional writers, professional automotive journalists, and collectively we would put together basically an online magazine that details, car tips, how to save on gas, how to drive in the rain, safety tips, travel, little road trip things, and a comprehensive automotive review collection done by professional automotive journalists.
Is your passion for cars a lifelong thing? Is it something that you got into when you began driving? Is that accurate to say that it's been your passion throughout your life?
I'm a Southern California girl. I grew up in Los Angeles, with a dad who drove 356 Porsches and little Morris
Nice.
Minors that he fixed up, and Austin Healey's. And my dad was into fixing up old cars, and I made my allowance by washing the cars. And when I was 13, he took me to a church parking lot and put me in the 356 with the long throw shifter and that 92 horsepower, that rumbling engine, and he taught me how to drive when I was 13 on his 356 Porsche. And yes, so I've been an automotive. He didn't have any sons; he had me.
Well, likewise, I've read that you've taken up the racing schools, including going to the Porsche Sport Driving School's Master Class and the Maserati Advanced Driving School over in Italy. Have you ever thought about driving in races? Have you ever done any racetrack stuff?
You know, I love track driving. I love track driving. I'm a Porsche enthusiast, obviously lifelong. I have a Porsche, actually.
Nice.
I love lateral G-forces. I mean, this is the irony of the whole thing, is that I am an enthusiast. I really am a car guy who happens to be a woman, but I love driving fast on a track. Having said that, I'm a mom and I have a husband, and when I started to do these racing schools, my husband said, you know, you're a mom, you really shouldn't be doing this. And so I've decided, you know, at that time I decided I will do this responsibly. I'll just do it in very restrained programs so that I don't get my butt kicked. You know, what I've noticed is when I was in those racing schools, guys will die to win a corner. They will all go into the corner at the same time, and they don't care if they die. And I noticed that I was always the one that if I was in the mix of them going into a turn, I would be the one to back off because I wasn't willing to die for that corner. And that's probably why there aren't more women in racing, because although I believe we are skilled drivers,
Sure.
we're not willing to die.
That is a really good insight. My wife's cousin, she has a first cousin who is a race car driver on dirt tracks back in Tennessee. Shout out to Smoky Mountain Speedway. Hey guys. But yeah, the difference between winning and placing 8th or 9th is that willingness to go into the corner no matter what. And it's scary sometimes. And you know, a lot of the guys that have that instinct wreck more than they win, and that's a very dangerous thing. So I agree with you. That's
the only way to win a race, though.
Yes, that's true. But it's
to die for that turn. And
it's the only way to win a race, and it's a good way to die. So that's kind of a 50-50 on.
Yeah, and you know, so many of the best drivers are dead. I mean, it's really true. Or they have these monumental crashes, and you know, as much as I love it, and so now I'm still on track. I was on a track a few weeks ago. I love it, but I do it in a really controlled situation, not a racing situation, but still a high speed, you know, where I can go as fast as I want, but not with 8 of us going into the same turn.
Talking about your career with Newsweek, as well as the journalism that you're doing now online with your team of writers on VroomGirls.com, where did you learn, or how did you learn when you were getting started in journalism to do such comprehensive and well-balanced reviews, include so much information in a short amount of words?
Well, thank you so much for that compliment. That's very nice. Mm-hmm. I was a real journalist before I became an automotive journalist. So I worked in news, hard news, from the time from college onwards. Worked in the news departments, and in fact was in the news department at Newsweek when one day they were walking around. I was in the Los Angeles bureau, and they were walking around the offices in New York and saying, you know, we think we want to have a weekly automotive review. Who knows about cars? And they're walking around, and it's a bunch of New Yorkers who take the subway, most of whom don't even have a driver's license. So
exactly.
Somebody said, hey, I think Tara in Los Angeles knows about cars. And the truth is, at the time, I didn't know about cars. I just liked cars, and I liked driving, but I didn't know anything about cars, really. So, because I was a journalist, they threw me in, I learned about it, and it led to Vroom Girls. Many years
Nice.
later.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely one of the best sites for car reviews as well as just for interesting general stories and news related stuff. So that's good.
Thank
Everything automotive, go to vroomgirls.com. That's definitely a good starting place to gain a lot of knowledge really quickly. I
I appreciate
really enjoy the site and I really like your work on it. Let me ask you, of course, we do rental car comparison at Vroom Vroom Vroom.
it. Mhm.
And of course, other than loving the name of your website, because it is also a Vroom site, um, do you ever think about or consider or use rental cars? And do you have any insight into when it's best to buy a car or rent a car and use it? Um, what is the benefit of renting a car versus purchasing? And is renting a car a good way to test drive?
Those are really good questions. We
Thank you.
haven't actually really touched on renting a car because we're an automotive purchase site.
Sure.
But if you are considering renting a car, our site is still a good site to come to because you could read the reviews of the various cars before you go rent a car. But I do think that that's a valuable service because everybody rents a car at some point. We all travel. We all have to rent cars. The rental companies provide us with a variety of choices, and they're not all created equal. I'm not a huge fan of the Korean cars. They tend to be they tend to look good. They're doing much better in the design, but when you touch the materials, they feel a little cheaper than the Japanese cars. They're cheaper cars, and the money has to come out of something, and so sometimes it comes out of safety. Sometimes it comes out of just the materials. The reinforcements in the steel may not be as great. So I'm not a huge fan of Korean cars, personally. I do like the Japanese vehicles. I love the German cars, of course. But, it comes down to price and how long you're going to have the car. If you're going to have the car for a couple of days, maybe you want to splurge and get something really sporty and fun if you don't have a family with you. If you're just two people going out on the road, get a really fun little convertible, or just splurge. It's part of the vacation, is my thought. Is if you get yourself in a sporty convertible for a weekend, that in itself is a vacation. It's a cheap way to have a vacation. You don't even need a hotel room. But yeah, so sorry, I'm rambling.
No, it's fine. Let me also ask you, going in the other direction, we've talked about, some of the problems with some of the cheaper models. If somebody were to tell you, you have to go on a road trip tomorrow and you need to rent a car, or if you were taking your family along, maybe packing up the pets and going somewhere on a long trip, what would you look for? What would you try to rent? Would you rent a smaller car? Would you rent an SUV? Would you go with a van? What would you, being a car expert, really look for? And maybe a model, or not to put you on the spot, but a make or a model that is out there right now that would be the best.
So this is actually something that happens to my family and me. We do take long road trip vacations, and my concern always is fuel efficiency, because I don't want to pay more in gas than I have to. So if it's more than a weekend, and I'm not just tooling around in a little sports car, if we're going on a real road trip, I want at least 40 miles to the gallon. Otherwise, I'm hemorrhaging money on fuel. So I love hybrids. I love them for road trips. That way you don't have to worry about plugging in. There's no electric plug-in anything. Toyota has the largest array of hybrid vehicles on the market.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? I mean, every single model, I think, comes in a hybrid. So if you want a Highlander and you've got 5 kids and a dog and tons of gear, you get the SUV, their big Highlander SUV, comes in a hybrid for sure. My favorite feature on the Highlander, by the way, for ladies, is they have a center console, big center console that is large enough to fit a really big handbag. laptop.
Oh man,
It's so
that's what
awesome.
my wife. That's what my wife needs because I'm constantly saying, "Don't put your bag in the cup holders." But that's a constant conflict in our household. So that's great. That's
It's
great
true.
advice.
You know what's great about it? If you want to run into the market really quick with your wallet, you don't want to bring your big bag, you just shove it in the center console. It's completely concealed. It's one of the, it might be the only SUV out there with a huge center console for that.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, I like Toyotas for that reason, and I really love hybrids for long road trips.
Cool. That's a great answer. So tell us, we were talking about road trips. Tell us what would be your most memorable road trip that you've been on. I'm sure you've been around the world and back, and I'm sure you've had a lot of trips within the U.S. yourself. You're living in Texas now, I believe,
I am.
which is famous for having all sorts of adventures and places to go. So tell us what would be your favorite road trip memory.
That's tough. I just went on one with my family. We went from Paris to Brittany and Normandy um,
Nice.
in a Volkswagen. What were we in? A Tiguan. A Tiguan, which was awesome. Small SUV. Um, it was great. And we drove up and down the Brittany and Normandy coast. We went to the World War II battle, the Omaha Beach we went to, and
Yeah.
we ate a lot of crepes and
Nice.
went to castles and saw the Bayou Tapestry. It was really cool. We had a really great vacation, and the car was fantastic. Those little narrow roads in France are a little tough with an SUV, but somehow we got back without scratching the car. But that was my most recent one. But in fact, one of my favorite road trips was from Los Angeles to the Grand Canyon, and it's only 7 hours, but it's kind of beautiful through the desert there. And once you get to the Grand Canyon, it's magical and shocking and cheap. That's a good cheap road trip.
Nice. That's on my bucket list. I have not been to the Grand Canyon yet, so I'm
Yeah,
definitely going to try to make
go.
it. Back to vroomgirls.com for a little bit. The Ask Tara, did I say it right this time?
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, all right. Ask Tara and the driving tips pages on your Vroom Girls website. Those are very popular, and they offer sort of beginners information and info for people that don't know much about cars, which, as we talked about, is a larger audience than a lot of sites cater to. What is the weirdest or the oddest question that you've received for one of those sections?
uh, I don't normally get weird questions. I actually get really helpful, simple questions that are, yeah, it's funny. I get really lovely, basic questions like, I've had a gas guzzling SUV for 14 years, and I'm 50 years old now, and my kids have left the nest, and what do you think I should get? I'll get a question like that, which, I always say, well, now's the time to go buy that fun little car that you couldn't drive for the last
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 years. Or I'll get something like a woman from the Northeast will say, I live in snow country. I really want a fuel-efficient vehicle, but I also need the utility of an all-wheel drive. Is there a fuel-efficient all-wheel drive car out there? I mean, I get really practical questions like that, which I appreciate so much, and I think those kinds of questions help so many people because we're all in the same boat in these kinds of automotive world questions.
Definitely, and it sounds like
Really
the
weird.
the reason that you get questions like that are people are genuinely helped by your columns, so that's good.
I hope
That's
so.
good.
I
Yeah,
try.
absolutely. So we ask this of all the bloggers that we talk to. We'll ask you as well. If your life was made into a movie, who would you want to play Tara? And would you have a title in mind? What would the Tara story be?
I like Tina Fey. I think Tina
Yes.
Fey is funny, so funny and smart. So, not that I'm funny or smart, but I would like Tina Fey to play me.
No,
uh,
I think that's a good choice. I see a little bit of her in you, in the way you carry yourself. That's good.
Thank you. I
That's good.
admire
That's
her
a
a
really
lot.
good one.
I love
What would the movie be called? Did you have a thought about that?
From Here to Eternity. No.
Oh, yeah, that nobody's ever used that.
Girls Drive too.
Good. That's a really good one. I would go see that. That's excellent.
Girls Drive. Or Get Out of My Way. No.
Get Out of My Way.
Beep.
Do you have any advice for young people or people that maybe are looking in the middle of their life to start a blog site or a news website like you have? What would the maybe one piece of advice that you would give an automotive writer who wanted to start a website?
You know, you talk about rental cars, and you know, auto manufacturers give me cars to drive to test out, loan me cars to test out, and then I give them back. But when you're starting out, nobody's going to give you a car. So if you want to have time in a vehicle where you need to evaluate everything and spend time in it, the best way is to go to a rental agency, rent a late model car, and write a review on spec and submit it to a website, because that's the best way to go spend some time in a car and pay, and you know, certainly read what the different websites are doing. Try to emulate that style, because there's always a style to the various magazines and websites and newspapers that are still reviewing cars. So pay attention to the style. Practice your writing skills. Writing is, to varying degrees, depending on the website, important. For us, it's very, very important. I really value good writing and good editing, so we value that. And go rent a car and review it and submit that, and expect that you're not going to be paid that well, because it's not a high-paying profession. But it's a fun one. You get to travel around the world driving cars, and there's something to be said for a beautiful life that way.
Amen. That's a great point. I think that's really good advice, and I think that's something that will resonate with a lot of people that watch this video and learn about you from our blog. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to speak with Vroom Vroom Vroom's car rental blog. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, tell our readers before we go where they can find your website, as well as maybe some of your social media outlets.
Well, thanks for asking. We're at VroomGirls.com. We are on Twitter, VroomGirls. We're on Facebook, VroomGirls. And you know, we love getting, it's not just women, you know, men who are not necessarily enthusiasts come to our site as well to learn various basic things about cars. We have a little item on Vroom Girls that's VG University. We'll talk about engine displacement and what that means, or the octane numbers on the gas tank. You know, do you know the difference between 87 and 93, and why should you care? You know, we have really basic automotive information for anybody. It's not just for women. But you know, please come visit.
Absolutely. I really recommend it for all of our readers, all of our viewers. It's a fantastic website, especially, like you say, for people that don't know that much and want to know more. Thank you so much, Tara, for taking the time to speak with us, and we hope to see you on the road.
Thank you so much.